look at me, and what do you see? Un vato loco. But what does that mean? Because all the vatos I've ever seen on TV have been killers, drug dealers, and gangbangers. So is that the way society sees me? When I watch the movies, or even the news, the ones that look like me are always dressed in prison hues, incarcerated, for life, por vida. That's me. Why not? It's already what they think, so I'll give them what they want. End up with my arms and legs cuffed, linked. Cufflinks. Like I could ever dream of that. I was destined for La Pinta. But why, might I ask? Is it because we're really worse people? Chale, that's stupid. It's because the society in which we all live tells me I'm inferior because of my money and my skin. They make us believe it by criminalizing our language, actions, histories, clothes, and all. They pass these damn laws that end up with us locked up playing handball. So why not mess around and be with my people? I'll let that guard tower be my only steeple. But you see, to allow our community to be criminalized is to allow our minds and bodies to be colonized. And to accept it is to just flow in the pipeline. But still we drop out and say, I'll do it in my own time. But I know, in the back of my mind, I can't do that. Or I'll end up locked up, in and out, always doing time. Looking at this, I don't want to waste my life. I don't want to see cell bars every day of my life. But that's what they think I'm destined for, a life full of strife. And so now, I fight real hard and represent my people. So don't treat me like the devil, puro evil. You see, I always went to class and did my work too. And look at me now, a vato, graduated, back, teaching in school. So you look at me, and what do you see? Un vato loco. But what does that mean? I grew up in Pueblo, with roots that run deep into the mountains of northern New Mexico. My family didn't have to cross any borders to get here. We were already here when these man-made borders were drawn and when they were moved. This historical connection to the land of what we now call the U.S. Southwest is something that provides me a sense of self, a sense of identity, a sense of Chicanismo. Chicanismo can roughly be understood as the sense of being Chicano. And this was the identity that colored my experience growing up. From embarking on a pilgrimage every Good Friday to the Santuario de Chimayo in New Mexico, to growing up with our family lowrider in the garage. Chicanismo was embedded in my experience before I even knew what that meant. As a young person, my academic identity was that of a voracious learner. I loved to read, and I would spend hours a day consuming information and trying to make sense of the world around me. As an elementary school student, this was typically encouraged, and most of my teachers from that time pushed and supported me. I never felt as though my personal and academic identities were in conflict until I was a bit older. One of the first significant memories I have of high school happened before my freshman year even began. When I received my initial schedule for the upcoming year, there were a couple changes I wanted to make. Namely, I wanted to enroll in more honors level courses. And so my mom and we went to the school, and we met with the counselor that I was assigned to. And I told her about those changes that I wanted to make to my schedule. And almost immediately, she began telling me how hard these classes were going to be, and about how things were so much more difficult in high school than they were in middle school. And if I really wanted to do this, I would need to buckle down and not prioritize sports like basketball. Now, I didn't even play basketball. But the point she was trying to make was extremely clear, that her expectations of me were low, and that in her mind, there was no way I would be able to handle the workload of an honors level student. So my mom let her know what was up. She asked that counselor if she had even seen my transcripts. And as she turned around, she saw the courses I had already taken, both as a middle school student and at the high school as a middle school student. And her whole demeanor changed. She made those changes. On the ride home, my mom and I talked about what had happened and how what I had just experienced in that high school counselor's office was an example of the type of racism and discrimination that would populate my experience from that point forward. The following year, I had the opportunity to attend a Latino leadership program that brought together Latinas and Latinos from all across Latin America to engage in a powerful learning and leadership experience. At this program was one of the first times that I felt an intense pride in my cultural identity and seeing so many people who were like me and who were doing amazing things in their community was a transformational experience. It gave me hope that I could also be part of this incredible legacy that had been and continues to be laid. But I never heard the word Chicano. I grew with and I transformed alongside people who identified as Latino. And while we were absolutely related and connected, I also felt like it wasn't quite my identity. I am a Chicano. And so I was inspired to learn what that meant. I spent countless hours over the next several years reading outside of school and at the library and at the park and in the parking lot of the community college where I was taking classes at just 16 years old. And I began to learn not just what it means to be a Chicano, but also about the historical and contemporary struggles of Chicana, Chicano, and indigenous peoples. I learned the story of UMAS and how people had fought so that I would have the opportunity to come to a university and be educated. I learned about Los Seis de Boulder, Luis Jr. Martinez, Ricardo Falcón, and Carlos Zapata, the martyrs of Colorado's Chicano movement. I began to understand myself and my community in the larger context of history. And I decided to come here to CU Boulder. And it was here that I became more heavily involved in organizing and activism. It was here that I came to the realization that my community was dealing with many of the same issues we had been organizing around since the 1960s and even before. And it was here that I fully realized how separated the university was from my community. It was because of this realization that a small group of umaceros and mechistas began organizing to recreate that link to the community through the development of Aquetza, youth leadership, education, and community empowerment. Aquetza, a Nahuatl word meaning to lift your chin up, is one of the most powerful and transformative experiences that I have ever had the honor of being a part of. Every summer, we bring between 50 and 60 students from around Colorado to the CU Boulder campus for one intense and transformative week of reflection, learning, and skill building, before sending them back into their communities with our staff at their side for a second week of creation, where students formulate and work to implement their Olin projects, their movement projects, and seek to create and sustain positive social change in their own communities. Because of our collective creation of Aquetza, I was given the opportunity to become a teacher while getting my master's here in the School of Education. And in 2014, after our second summer of the program, I began to teach at a high school in Southwest Denver, where I continue to teach Chicano studies to this day. And while the students that I work with come from a complex variety of backgrounds, our explorations of Chicanismo, Latinidad, and indigeneity reveal the need for educators to look beyond surface-level identity markers to fully embrace the complex identities and histories that make up our communities. So I want to leave you with the question. When you look at me, what do you see? An educated vato? A future PhD? How about a manifestation of my people's history? Thank you.